Hi everybody, it's alisamurray here with another Martini Talk, and today I'm hanging out with my friend Larry Haines. Larry, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. It's been an absolute wonderful place to be.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. So we're going to talk to you guys today about some safety things and some concerns that we've both got. And I just invite you to be a part of the conversation. So Larry, talk to me. Tell me what's going on and what you're doing and
Right.
all of that.
So I work with the Delta Defense, and they're the service provider for the United States Conceal Carry Association. And we provide training, education, and self-defense liability insurance in the event that you do have to use a weapon, any legal weapon of opportunity in any act of self-defense across all 50 states and U.S. territories. So the bottom line is our focus, especially over the last 9 months, have been, I think as of September, 28 million plus background checks done on people that were, their intention was to buy a weapon. And so we are seeing a huge influx of new shooters, new gun owners, never before handled or shot a gun coming in. And obviously you don't want that. You don't want a bunch of uneducated, unskilled people, making mistakes and hurting themselves and or others. And so that's where our focus is right now, is the training and education and working with ranges, retailers and influencers and so forth to basically get the word out about what we do, how we do it, and how we work with others to teach everything from concealed carry home defense plan to countering the mass shooter threat in the event of a school or a church shooting, which is my personal interest.
Right, and that to me, and when we talked on the phone, and it really resonated with me because I don't remember when it was or which one it was. That's really the problem. There's been more than one.
Right.
And I remember distinctly visiting with my priest, and I said, okay, I'm not concealed carry. I have a gun. I know how to shoot my gun. If somebody came in my home, I can take care of my home. But, I'm a hothead. Fire pistol. And my husband was like, I don't think it's a good idea for you to get a concealed carry, because if somebody makes you mad or you see something wrong, you're going to try to fix the world, and that's not a good idea. But I remember just distinctly having the conversation with him about the church, and I was worried that we didn't have anybody in the church that was
Right.
taking care of it. We do, thankfully, but I am connecting you to them because we have a new priest, and I want to make sure that everybody's above, like, all up to speed on different techniques and whatever. But tell me about that. I mean, I know that's your personal passion. It's my passion too, to make sure everybody stays safe. And the reality is that we are all living in a world right now that's just not.
Well, and that's, I think, the key, as we know over the last several years, and specifically over the last months, where you see the rioting going on, and it's not been stopped. So it's actually being promoted, even if it's by people that don't want to address it.
Right.
It's still, ignorance is still allowing it to happen.
Well, it's like I say, no response is a response.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is what most people don't realize is the consequences of that are, number one, not being shown fully on television. We've had well over 850 cops that have been essentially hurt and or killed in the line of duty,
Just Monday.
just trying to defend property and people that are law-abiding citizens. And so when you look at that across, I think it's 250 different cities,
Okay.
the tactics being used are essentially using overwhelming force against individuals, storefronts, police, where they're not prepared to take on 10, 20, 30.
Well, no. I mean, if you've got a Chanel or a Louis Vuitton or whatever, a store with all the luxury stuff in it, I mean, you've got trained salespeople, but you don't, maybe one security officer to catch a shoplifter, but you certainly
No.
are not prepared to have 25 people walk in carrying guns and busting windows and glasses and taking all your inventory.
Right. And that's you see it overseas. I mean, when you pay attention to what's happening in church bombings and things like in Sri Lanka and things like that, you can go look at this on YouTube and find out what's coming to America. Okay, because those tactics aren't. Most churches at this point have basically said, hey, we're gonna look for that odd guy out, that's that socially not quite right,
Awkward, yeah.
awkward, it's the middle of summer and he's in a trench coat kind of guy, who's probably got a rifle or a shotgun under his coat kind of thing. And we're going to try to first, address him in the parking lot, in a friendly way, because you don't want to drive people away from church, but you also don't want to allow that to come in to the church in the event that it's just not right.
Right.
And so that's what everybody's trained for. So you have security teams and police officers that are in the hallway or out directing traffic. They aren't the first responders. The first responders are going to be the people with their butts in the pews. And when pandemonium breaks out, when you have 2 or 3 or 4 shooters or a pipe bomb goes off, and then the shooting starts, you're going to see, for instance, well, let me give you an instance. A long time ago, I'm older.
You are not old.
But when I was
we're not old.
We're not old.
I keep telling everybody
right.
we're not old.
Well, I don't feel old.
We're experienced.
Very, very experienced.
There we go.
So when I was a kid, my dad was in the Navy,
Okay.
and we were over in Athens, Greece. Okay, so I was coming home for a month to basically visit my brother and then go back to Greece and finish off high school.
Okay.
So in 1973, I'm in high school. I'm 16 years old, gonna turn 17 in a couple of months. So I come home, or make my plans to come home. 2 men with grenades and AK-47s came into the Athens airport and killed 3 people and wounded 55 in a matter of just a couple of minutes. Okay.
Minutes.
And it just goes to show, at that time, it scared the crud out of me, because I basically had to go through the airport to get on my flight, where there were police everywhere. You could still see the explosions and the bullet holes in the concrete and that sort of thing as we walked, through that area. But it was all cordoned off, in terms of the balcony, where these guys just basically stood up and sprayed down below where people were waiting, and, where people typically were waving to their loved ones. They were being shot at and, wounded by the dozens. So that put a mark on me, that I remember that, and you see that happening more and more and more, where people are driving through crowds like they did with the running over that police officer the other day.
Monday.
Yeah, 30 officers in Philadelphia, that were hurt because of people throwing rocks and bricks, and people pre-staging bricks in ice water bottles.
Yeah.
And I just had a headline that I brought down to show you, where they in Philadelphia found a van with propane bottles, potential sticks of dynamite or something that were going to basically do nothing but destruction, whether it's of people and or property. And I think that's going to kind of come into the church, because the churches are soft targets.
They are.
And so that's my that's why I wanted to share it with people. It's just we live in a society that most people have been lax too long and let the responsibility of their own safety be on someone else. And we have to change that attitude. There's a Second Amendment for a reason, and we need to not only protect it, be educated and trained. You'll win every fight that you don't get into.
Right.
Okay, and that's what we're trying to promote. Is number one, there's like 4 different levels of safety. It's like people walking around falling into fountains with their head in their cell phone and just no clue about who's around them, what's going on, or anything else. And you see those videos of people stumbling into water fountains and things like that. You can never be in that when you carry a gun. You have to be in the next level at least, where it goes basically, white, and then, up all the way to red alert, which can happen like in an instant.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of understand that you need to have situational awareness. So that's what I want to bring. But it's also, we do training one-on-one. There's classes that can be put on like for realtors and things like that want to kind of take that training to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, as far as me and my career as a real estate agent, which has been kind of in and out of that world, for the past 30 years, I would never, ever go into an open house setting alone. And I have partners that have guns, that carry guns, that are concealed carry, and are comfortable doing that. There was one time, which is just interesting, because you mentioned this, we were talking off camera, we were talking, because we talk anyway, and I didn't mention this to you the other day, but whenever I did a book, I did all the photography for this book, and I write my column, and some weird guy called before I was supposed to be at the podium, and I was there. Mattress Mac was also there. There were a lot of people there, and he was like, "I'm going to be there. I'm going to be watching you," and it scared me. It scared me.
Right.
And my publisher, who's also Conceal, she carried her gun that day, and the whole entire time was following me around, so that if anybody tried to do anything funky, that she
Right.
was prepared to take them out. And you just don't think about it, like, and I'll tell you something else. I had another conversation with another Martini talk and some friends, my team actually, the makeup artist and the other photographer that I have that works with me. I've taken all my jewelry off. I don't go out anymore at all with anything that is of any value to me. I mean, that stuff's not even here. It's got to be put away somewhere else, because I don't know what we're dealing with.
Right.
I don't know. Granted, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and that's a good thing, actually. It's also a bad thing, actually.
Can be.
Right? You know what I mean? But it's just not the same time as it was 6
No.
months ago. It's not the same time as it was a year ago.
Right.
And people need to be able to understand that they've got to wake up and figure out what they're going to do. They've got to have their game plan. It might not be get a gun. It might not be. It might just be run. I don't know what their game plan is going to be, but it's just scary. And I'm just glad that you've got the classes. I'm glad that you've got the opportunity for people to understand what they can do to educate themselves, whether they decide they're going to carry a gun or not. Is their own personal choice, obviously, but it's something that we have to talk about. It's like that conversation that you don't want to have. We have to talk about it.
Well, I'm in a church with about, it's 3 different services, but the sanctuary we go into is about 4,000 people. It's got a balcony upstairs. It's got about 8 different entrances all the way around it. It's got the choir up in the back and
Right.
so forth, and musicians and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of people and a lot of things going on. And you figure out of about 4,000 people, you're probably going to have 50 to 100 people that are carrying a gun, concealed carry in the church,
Right.
of that size. Just because I know people that do that.
Right.
Okay. And our question is, we have a security team, but trying to talk to the security team and to get them to involve the congregation, because here's what I think is going to happen. It's not going to be the one guy coming in a church, as I've said before. It's going to be 2 or 3 or 4, and maybe explosives involved and that sort of thing, to cause the most chaos and the most destruction and pandemonium at one time that they can do. So imagine 50 people pulling their guns out, pointing them in different directions unsafely because they're scared and they don't know how to use it and they haven't been prepared.
Right.
To keep your finger off the trigger until you define the target, know what's behind your target, not just the one you're shooting. And so, they'll see something like the church shooting that happened, last night. What was it, December the 29th, I think it was. The guy took the guy with the shotgun out with one shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's not typical.
No.
Not typical at all, because people are moving around. That was a fairly small, confined area.
Mm-hmm.
He even said it himself. They were very lucky that that stopped when it did.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I can't imagine 25, 50 people plus the security team, and no one knows who they are.
Right.
Plus people that are just losing their minds and yelling and screaming and running or
And
ducking.
children and babies and mothers and
Yeah.
grandmothers, and it's awful.
Yeah.
The whole concept of it is awful. That's why nobody wants to talk about it. But that's why I wanted us to talk about it,
It's
because
exactly right.
it's important. It's just important,
It is, because it's not something that you can ignore, because if you look at just on a probability and a risk, it's like saying, okay, an asteroid's going to hit the Earth, and if it did, it would be death to all human beings, right? Well, that's a very low probability, but a very, very high risk. Well, if you look at the continuum of risk and has it happened before? Yeah, it happens all over the world, much more so than here in the United States, but it's starting to happen more here.
Just this morning in France, some woman was dragged into a church and beheaded.
Yes.
Just today.
Yeah.
Just this very morning.
I actually have that headline that I wanted to show you.
And I saw that, and I thought, I'm meeting with you, and it's not a welcome subject to have in my lap as a example of what we're talking about, to be this so close to home with the timeliness of it.
Right.
But I was just like, wow. I mean, like, it's everywhere. It's all the time. If you just
Well,
open your eyes and watch the news and pay attention.
if you go to church and you believe in the scriptures, there is evil in the world, and you want to combat evil with love and good and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, we're called to take care of our families and to, be like some people are sheepdogs, if you will. They're trying to protect the flock, so to speak. And it's up to the pastors and the security teams and stuff to get more people involved, because they're a resource and they need to be trained together. And that's where I'm trying to kind of connect the congregation.
There's a disconnect that needs to be reconnected or
Absolutely.
connected, solidified, so that everybody knows what their job's going to be, and whenever something bad happens, who's supposed to go to what door,
Exactly.
who's supposed to look over their shoulder, who's supposed to do this, that, and then I would even argue, let the entire congregation have a meeting and let them all know what is happening, so that they know that they're protected, and there's a plan in place.
Right.
So they don't need to freak out. I mean, they're going to freak out anyway. I mean,
Some people are, but I mean, it's you can't control what people think or feel, because it's a scary thing, and those emotions are going to dwell up in people, well up in people. But the leadership has to be such, I think, that you have to address the problem. You've got to say, just like we're trying to address COVID, separate, masks on, wash your hands, yada yada yada. That's because that's something that's real,
right.
and so we're trying to do our thing to, how you address it necessarily. You can go stick your head in the sand, or you can basically say, yeah, I've got to do these things and take some precautions. Same thing with training in guns.
Yeah.
You can't just go to the range, pull out your gun that you use once every 6 months or a year, shoot at a target, paper target, and then expect your reactions and your abilities and your skills to be honed to the point where, hey, within 2 or 3 seconds, somebody can do something, and I need to have an immediate response, or I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, like, one of the ranges I have as a simulator, and you can run through all kinds of different simulations and multiple times with different outcomes, and it really gives you a sense of, you're using a laser gun. Basically, it's registering your laser shots,
right.
But it gives you a sense of, number one, how quickly did you act? Did you live or die?
Right.
Number two,
that's very important.
That's very important. That's very important, and it really wakes you up to see how fast things can happen. Like, some guy pulls a gun on you and just starts shooting your way, and you didn't respond. Well, now you're dead. And you saw the gun in his waistband, but you didn't pull your gun out and say, stop.
Right.
Because he's trying to kidnap your car.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now these classes, the simulator, are they located here in Houston?
Well, it's up north of Houston. The simulators. There's other ranges around that have similar resources, but even the hands-on classes. I work with several instructors that are really good at working one-on-one or one-on-6 out on a range, like outside or something. They can actually set up different scenarios for people to do. Obviously, it depends on your skill set. If you've never handled a gun before, you want to take some of the basic classes first, get proficient in, loading, unloading, safe. You never point a gun at someone that you don't intend to shoot.
Right.
Knowing what your targets are before, keep your finger off the trigger. Those kinds of things, you really have to kind of practice, because most people want to
first thing.
That's
because it's a little kid when you're playing with guns, little. Water guns or whatever kind of guns. We didn't have them in my house. We had them when I was little. But I made a very big, there was 2 things that we did. I said we weren't going to do. One of them I backed out on. But, all y'all know, because y'all follow me, my mother was hit and killed by a train when I was 8. So I didn't want any trains. And then, of course, this wonderful toy store in Sugar Land had all these toys, and they wanted me to do the train table for the kids in the studio to play with while Mom's picking out pictures. So I've had a train table over there in the presentation room for 22 years. But I said no guns. And so, as the kids got younger and got older, grandfather's like, oh, what is it? No. When it comes time to teach the children about guns, the guns that they'll play with will never be play. It's always going to be a conversation about, this is a serious piece of equipment, and there's no chance of anybody thinking, oh, this is a play gun, because there's no gun that's a play gun.
Nope.
You know, just
Treat every gun as if it's loaded, even if it's not. Double check it, triple check it. So it's just, there's, training and skills are learned. You don't just, hey, I bought a gun and I somehow metamorphically,
know how to
had
use
this, great inspiration. Now I'm a gunslinger.
Well, and the thing too is that it's a skill that has to be continuously practiced. It's just like, it's not like getting on a bicycle and you figure out how to ride a bike when you're a kid and then you get back on one at 40 and you can still ride the bicycle. You might wobble around a little bit, but you can still make it work. You really need, if you're going to do it, you really need to take the time to say, okay, once a month I'm going to learn this and I'm going to clean it and unload it and reload it and do it and practice it just like you're brushing your teeth, so that it becomes a natural state of habit and you can just do it without even thinking about it,
And there's simple skills, like how many people actually practice their command voice? Have you ever seen anyone do it? No.
Maybe a mother.
Well, that's different. That's yelling at your kids, but
maybe a mother. I don't know. See if your command voice is
if-
in the studio when they're not cooperating for me for photos.
if you're in a situation, then you're not used to going, stop!
Right.
Don't move!
Right.
And using that command voice with a hand gesture, because just because somebody's coming at you doesn't give you the right to pull your gun and point it at you. If you brandish your gun, then you become the aggressor, and you could be liable for armed assault or anything that the DA, especially DAs in liberal areas that don't like guns, want to throw at you.
Right.
And so you really need to be careful and understand situational awareness, but also how to respond to people to try and de-escalate the situation. Back up instead of going forward. Try to get away instead of pulling your gun and shooting. It should always be a last resort, and it's got to be an immediate threat, and they have to have the capability instead of a disparity of force. Like if you came up to me and you're this tall and I'm this tall, and you took a swing at my chin, should I pull out my gun and shoot you? It's a disparity of force. You might hurt me, but you're not gonna maim me, kill me. So the threat on threat is not the same. Whereas if I came up to you and tried to punch you, I could do some bodily harm, break your neck, make you fall down, hit your head, whatever the case might be, and a jury would say, you have the right to use deadly force because he's 100 pounds
Bigger
more
than
and a foot taller than you. And so it's those are the kind of things you don't think about until you actually are in training and start to get the sense of this. I don't want to be the hero. I don't want to pull out my gun. It's always be a last resort to protect life and limb. And property is insurable, for the most
Absolutely.
part. So a lot of people in Texas think, castle doctrine, I can shoot anybody in my house, and here in Texas we don't even have to drag them over the threshold. That's my property.
Leave them laying dead in the yard.
Exactly. Let the buzzards get them. So that's not.
It's not true.
That's not true.
No.
It's not true. So
No.
you just have to make the people aware that that skill set is something to be acquired over time through mentoring and training.
So you have that program in place. So the viewers will be able to connect with you through the links that we'll send them, in
Right.
the episode, and they can sign up for beginner or intermediate or advanced or continue their education for as long as they want to through all the programs.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
It's been wonderful visiting with you again.
Cheers.
Cheers to you as well. Listen, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed being a part of the conversation. There's a lot to be learned about being safe and learning how to use your gun and know how to clean it and do everything that you need to do to be safe with it, but not only that, but be safe in the community as a gun carrying person.
Right.
And I hope that you will take the time to look down in the episode information and contact Larry, because there's a lot of really good information that he has to give you that you'll really find very informative.
Yep.
And we appreciate that. So listen, do me a favor and like and share, and don't forget to ring that bell so that you're notified each week whenever another episode drops. Again, thanks for watching. Take care.